Wonderful. So, namaste and welcome to this fourth session, I think, of Transcending the Mind out of nine sessions. So, let me just, there we go. Wonderful. So, we are here today to look at another chapter of Transcending the Mind, the book. And just a quick reminder that all the recordings from these sessions are available on the page. There's a link being posted in the chat here, and you can go back and watch them again if it's helpful. And that there are Sanghas run, so that's just a gathering run by our qualified Acharya teachers here in the community. So Lisa and Pilar are both qualified in teaching this book also. They have fallen in love with the book and allowed it to turn them inside out so that they deeply, deeply know this book also. So they're running Sanghas to support where you can ask questions and get some help applying what you're learning in these sessions. And in these sessions with me, the sessions we're keeping quite short so that at the end, the final session will be longer and I'll take as many questions as there are about the book in that final session. You can also get help and support in the WhatsApp communities for the English and the Spanish community, have a special group in them just for the Transcending the Mind book. And you don't need to have the physical book. It is on the recordings page. The electronic version of the book is on there. So you can look at that if you need to. And just want to, before we dive into this chapter today, I want to just take a moment to remind you that this book is about seeing. How do we transcend the mind? Well, we transcend it by seeing how the mind works. We transcend it by seeing how and why the mind is thinking. So we can step back as if we're looking, excuse me, from the top of a mountain, and we're looking down at the ground below, at what is going on. The activity in the mind is like the ground below. And here we're just standing at the top of the mountain, and it's a much clearer view. Before, we might have thought we were at the bottom of the mountain. So we're just remembering we're already up there and looking at the mind and the way it works. You remember when you were a child, you were really curious about how things worked. Maybe you still are. And I found myself with the same curiosity about the mind eventually. Why is it so noisy? Why is it thinking constantly? Why does it keep turning over the same problem again and again and again, trying to find some kind of answer? What is it that fuels the mind and its thought process? When we can come to understand, then we're not in resistance to the mind and it will begin to become quiet by itself, which is good news. And really, this is a love affair, this book. We're actually making friends with the mind. It might not be what we expect ourselves to, how we might expect to feel about the mind. Once we understand why it's so noisy, we'll come to peace with it, meaning we'll realize that it's so noisy because it's trying to do something or find out how to do something that it really cannot do. So this book is the 7 ways that we sustain the sense of a doer. And we have looked at the first 2 in the previous sessions. And we're going to look at the 3rd way today. So it's a book about seeing only. We're just going to learn how to see. We're going to see what the wrong ideas are in the mind that are causing it to have so much noise. Imagine if your hand had a splinter, a wood splinter in it, and it hurt. And now imagine 7 splinters in your hand. You would want to take them out, right? One by one at a time. And the mind has 7 splinters in it that fuel all of the other thoughts that it's thinking. So we've looked at 2 already. We're going to look at the third one today. And just a final reminder, I'll do this every week, but it's good to remember that the pattern that we're working with, whatever the trigger is. So I gave an example last week, and I'll use the same example. I'll follow it all the way through 7 stages about my lack of financial abundance that was such a problem for so long. That we will look at the stages of how we maintain the sense of being someone who can do something. So just to see how the mind thinks and how we're sustaining that sense of doing is enough. Just to see, oh, that isn't true. The moment we see that thought isn't true, we're already coming out of it. While we think it's true that we can do something, then we're going to keep trying to do, and the mind is going to keep thinking about how to find the right thing to do. So it's very, very simple, this book. We're just seeing 7 thoughts that aren't true. That's all we're doing. And I'm saying that because we tend to make things more complicated. I certainly did. And still sometimes do. But it's funny now. So if you have the physical book, I'm going to share my screen anyway today, so you can either read on the screen with me or in the actual book. But if you have the physical book, it starts this chapter on page 47, at least in the English version. I'm not sure about the Spanish. Page 47. And we'll take it nice and slow. So we're just remembering that we don't have to work hard with this. In fact, if we're working hard, we think we're a doer, right? So we're just relaxing, just listening. And this is being recorded, so if something is said that you really want to go back to, you can listen again, watch again, so that you don't have to really try to get anything today. So let's just remember, just to see the false idea in each stage and why it's not true. The work is done there. The seeing has happened. And then I'll give it just a little bit of homework, just to help see even clearer how this is happening in our lives. Homework you don't have to do at all, but it will help with the assimilation of the book. Okay, so let me go ahead and share my screen. Wonderful. So can everyone see my screen okay? Just give me a thumbs up. Wonderful. Zoom has changed its settings again, so it's all very different. So we're going to look at chapter 7 today, which is stage 3, the emotional charge. Before we take a look at the next layer of each mind pattern, let's remind ourselves that although we have had breakthroughs at each stage, it is very likely that the mind pattern will return again. The trigger will begin to bother you again at each stage when you are ready to transcend further. This will happen because you are destined to fully transcend your mind. And as such, it will push you all the way to awakening or enlightenment. We must be mature in our attitude and be ready and welcoming when the same patterns resurface and not look at them in a negative way. Each step along the way gets easier to see and faster to transcend because you are gaining more of your power back by being your true self more and more. You are not a person, you are the formless awareness, and you are already beyond the mind. This book is just helping you to peel back the layers of the mind so that you can see ever more clearly what you already are. In stage 3, we come to see that the trigger event and the thoughts that occur are really not the cause of our struggle. We can start to see that even if we witness the thoughts, they may still keep coming, and we have to work on a deeper level. The thoughts are being produced, and the trigger event has to manifest in our life because we have suppressed emotions that have built up over our lifetime, and we have not allowed this emotional charge to be felt and dissipated. Only by allowing ourselves to notice the emotions behind the thoughts and fully feel them will the thoughts ever truly subside. The thoughts are attracted to emotional buildup of energy and are not the true cause. So let's just stop there for a moment. So, what we're starting to see is that each time we peel back another layer of the mind, there's a simpler and simpler stage to transcend. And because we're starting to see in stage 1, we can't change the outside world to make us feel better. And in stage 2, we're starting to see that we cannot reject or accept thoughts. We can't do anything with thoughts. We don't have that capacity. Then all the life force we were wasting trying to do those things is now back here with us and is free, therefore, to see the next stage even more easily. And when we move to stage 4 next week, we'll see that even more easily. And stage 5 will be even easier to understand because we're getting freer and freer and freer and gaining back more life force each time. We're already free, but we're living more free each time. So it's important to realize that this isn't a linear process. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stages. We probably go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's an exponential curve and how much life force we're getting back. It's not a linear process at all, which is good news because it shortcuts the time to really get this. So let's go back to the book. So, in order to do this, we must take responsibility for our emotions and learn that it's okay to feel them. Perhaps in our life, nobody has actually shown us how to handle such intense emotions, and we have had only a few options to cope with them. So we usually suppress them or project them onto others. At some point in this process of waking up to our true nature, we must become willing to feel these emotions. We need not feel them all at once, but we do have to change our tactics without shame. Nearly all adults have really very little skills at dealing with emotions, and it seems to be our way to try to ignore them or hope that they will go away. Even when we have felt emotions, we're usually seeing it as a sign of weakness. So, transcending the false ideas. There are two main false ideas that have held us captive in this stage. So, number 1, if I don't allow myself to feel this emotion, it will go away and I won't have to deal with it. So, let me repeat that again. If I don't allow myself to feel this emotion, it will go away and then I won't have to deal with it. Number two, also, if I allow myself to feel this emotion, it will overwhelm me and it will be unpleasant, or I will not be able to shut it off again. So, if I allow myself to feel this emotion, it will overwhelm me and it will be unpleasant, or I will not be able to shut it off again. Excuse me. So we can see that these two ideas, if we just take a look at these two ideas and see right now, are they really true? Has it actually worked for us? So if I don't allow myself to feel this emotion, it will go away and I won't have to deal with it. Has that actually worked? Is it true? Is that idea true? So if we can see that when we suppress an emotion, it temporarily goes back underneath the surface, but it hasn't gone away and it will come back. It must come back because it's seeking expression and seeking to be felt, seeking to be allowed. So just to notice that. Is it actually true that if I don't allow myself to feel this emotion, it will go away and I won't have to deal with it? When I looked at that myself, it was quite clear that that had never actually been true. If that thought were true, the very first time we suppressed an emotion, it would disappear forever. You would have only ever felt fear once, shame once, anger once. It's not true, is it? They come back around in a cyclic way. And when we're suppressing them, it's not actually a permanent solution. And the life force that it costs us to not want to look at these, to not want to see them, is costing the body, costing us. And let's look at number two now. If I allow myself to feel this emotion, excuse me, if I allow myself to feel this emotion, it will overwhelm me and it will be unpleasant, or I'll not be able to shut it off again. So I had this idea about all the emotions, never let myself feel them fully. These ideas, they're not conscious, are they? They're not conscious ideas here, but they are deeply buried within us and are running the way that we deal with emotions. Here in this community and in life in general, we are learning it's okay to allow these emotions to come to the surface. And we have techniques such as this book. We also have contemplation and other practices to help us to be with emotions. When we're willing to see an emotion, then it cannot overwhelm us. When we're willing to actually be with an emotion, there is no way for it to overwhelm us. So it might be intense, but it will never overwhelm us if we're actually just feeling it. When we think about an emotion, that's when it feels separate to us, and that's when it builds up in intensity that we don't feel we can handle. So here we're learning to just see the emotion. And the two major ways that we avoid seeing, just being and seeing and being with the emotion is these two thoughts here, these two false ideas. So could you explain this to someone if they asked you, why is this not true? Could you explain it to someone? And it's a good idea to just practice writing this down yourself when you have time. Why is this false idea number one not true? Why is false idea number two not true? So let me say them again, just so that we can have some even greater clarity. Number one, if I don't allow myself to feel this emotion, it will go away and I won't have to deal with it. Well, we only have to look at our whole life experience to see that this is not true. Has avoiding an emotion actually ever brought us to permanent, lasting, stable peace and joy and the absence of any negative emotion? For me, it really didn't. Number two, if I allow myself to feel this emotion, it will overwhelm me and it will be unpleasant, or I won't be able to shut it off again. Well, actually, when I looked at it was the opposite. When I don't allow myself to feel it, then I am actually going to be overwhelmed by it. It must seek expression, the emotion. And so it's going to find any way it can to try to come back to the light of my awareness. It just wants to be felt and to dissipate back to peace. So number two, if number two were true, then every time we allowed ourselves to feel an emotion, we'd be overwhelmed and it'd be like a tap we could not turn off. But if we look at our experience here in this community, the more we allow ourselves to actually feel an emotion, the less able it is to overwhelm us. And the more we realize that we can turn towards it in a gradual way. So these two thoughts are not true. Why are they not true? Well, because we are formless awareness. We cannot actually reject a thought, an emotion. It's not like we can actually say, I'm not going to allow this emotion to arise. We don't have that capacity. And again, I'm teaching this on two levels today here to be as direct as you need me to be, hopefully. You don't have the capacity to suppress an emotion. You've never suppressed an emotion. You've just experienced this idea that you think you can. Thinking about emotions is a way to try to avoid them. So you've also never made a decision to allow yourself to feel an emotion. When it's time to feel it. You cannot do anything with emotions as formless awareness. You cannot interact with anything at all in the plane of manifestation, and emotions are subtle manifestations. And sometimes not so subtle, sometimes quite intense. So let's continue our reading. Notice that both of these ideas are your mind's way of avoiding having to feel the emotions. Our mind is trying to perpetuate its survival mechanisms, and it thinks that if we feel the emotions and they go, that the mind will collapse and be non-existent. To some degree, that's true, as the thoughts will be no longer produced due to the backlog and build-up of the emotional charge. But we will still be able to use our mind when we need it for a functional purpose. We will still be able to plan an event, write a shopping list, or get to work on time. Most of the resistance at this stage will come because your mind fears its own end. Once you know this is not true, you can push through the resistance and feel the emotions anyway. One key factor that makes transcending this level quick and easy is to ensure that you put all of your attention on the emotion once it comes. To do this, we must notice that thoughts come first. Sorry, let me start that sentence again. To do this, we must notice that thoughts first that thoughts come first usually, but then we can sense the emotion underneath that is asking to be felt. If we keep attention on our thoughts, we are in fact still suppressing the emotion. This is vital to understand because it is not enough to put half your attention on the emotion and notice it is there. Imagine an honored guest was coming for dinner at your house, perhaps someone you hadn't seen in a long time. Wouldn't you want to clear up and tidy around to make sure you could give them all the attention they deserve? Well, these emotions have been sitting outside your house for a long time and are simply asking to come in from the cold. Incredibly, we find that once we allow ourselves to feel the emotions, it will begin to lighten and its frequency will change. Each emotion is on its own journey back to wholeness, but it needs our permission, our attention, and our ability to feel it fully. When attention is on the emotion only, then the thoughts that proliferate in these situations will immediately begin to quieten down. You will know almost immediately that you have hit on something key in your spiritual growth here. And in transcending the mind, and you will have immediate proof that resisting emotions causes thoughts to multiply and not the other way around, as our mind would like us to believe. So, let's stop this there. And let's just summarize, if we can, what we've just understood. So, we think we have the capacity to push an emotion away. We think we have the capacity to project it onto someone else. And actually, we don't. We experience these two false ideas, and that keeps us in a circle going around. So an emotion comes up, a thought says, I don't want to look at this, and it gets pushed back down again with that thought. The sense of separation that thought brings pushes it down. And the mind says, that worked to get rid of this emotion. It's gone. But we know it hasn't really gone. We know that it is going to come back up again. We've seen it 1,000 times in our lives. So we're going to try the opposite. We're going to just see the emotion. We're going to see that we cannot do anything other than see and be with an emotion. It's not true that we can resist anything. We also cannot allow anything. So as we start to recognize why these two ideas aren't true, emotions can simply come, and in the openness of our energy then, because we're not believing any thoughts, they will just naturally shift in a higher frequency and turn back into peace. It's really important. So let's summarize all of this chapter completely in two easy things. Excuse me a moment. So you cannot suppress or even allow an emotion. It's not possible. And all you are doing is seeing. When an emotion arises, it's not separate to you. You see it. You can't reject an emotion if it's still made of awareness, if it's still made of yourself. You also can't accept it either. It's just arising as an appearance inside of you, and we call it a name like shame or anger or fear. So just to see that you've never actually interacted with an emotion, It's quite shocking, isn't it? It's quite shocking. For me, this was really shocking because a large part of my spiritual identity was built on being someone who is getting really good at feeling emotions. I'm no longer suppressing them. I'm allowing them more. I'm not projecting them onto others more anymore. I am feeling them, being with them. And here we're saying that's great, but it's not the ultimate truth. Actually, as formless awareness, I don't have the capacity to push an emotion away or to hold on to it, allow it. It's simply not true. When we see this, when an emotion arises next time, we will just be with it. We'll experience just being with it. All of our attention will go to the emotion, and the mind will stop thinking in that moment. When our whole attention goes to an emotion, the mind gets quiet. Because when we're just being with an emotion, there's no point in the mind thinking about what to do about all these emotions. When we've realized that we can't do anything with emotions, then we're actually starting to free up the life force that's been busily invested in the mind that's trying to think about what to do. Why does shame keep coming back, says the mind? What do I do about it? How do I allow it? How do I get rid of it? Why is it coming back again? And it will come back again, each emotion, until we realize that we are only seeing it. It's as if each negative emotion is our teacher, is showing us that we can only actually see, we can only actually see, we can only see and be. And that every time I think I can do something with an emotion, it fails. It fails to get rid of it completely. Hasn't our life taught us that? And will we let fear, excuse me one moment. There is a man that's supposed to come and cut the grass outside our house, outside the window here, and he's supposed to come on a Thursday, but he's here on Wednesday, and I can't hear anything I'm saying, so I shut the window. So, apologies about that. So what if each emotion was our teacher to try to show us that it's going to be here in our lives until we recognize we can't do anything with it and that we don't need to do anything with it? It's a different way to be with an emotion, isn't it? For me, at first, admitting I couldn't do anything with an emotion felt like failure. But amazingly, everything began to change. Everything began to turn around. I had lived with fear and shame for so long. Guilt, unworthiness, despair, jealousy, every emotion. And it didn't actually ever work to try to do something with them. It never worked. So this chapter, we can really summarize it in one simple sentence, that I do not have the capacity to interact with emotions at all. And far from that leaving me feeling powerless, it actually empowers me to just be myself, the real self. And that real self, when it simply sees an emotion, the emotion begins to change. It has to. So the homework for today, for this week, is to read the rest of this chapter. There are examples in the book of this stage being applied. So if you want to, it's a good idea to read the rest of those examples in the chapter and to make a list of all the negative emotions that you feel on a regular basis and any negative emotion that you feel every now and again. So every time a trigger happens, there's usually some negative emotion that comes with that. So whenever you feel this emotion, write it down on your list. For me, with money, it was the lack of money. It was fear, anger, despair, jealousy, frustration, and about 17 more, I think. But mainly fear, anger, shame, and despair, and jealousy. And I began to see that when these emotions arose, and I go to the cash machine, to the ATM, and there's no money in there, or I get a letter saying you have to pay this bill now, and there's no way to do it, or I'm in the supermarket and I'm taking things out of my shopping that I can't afford and leaving things I really, really need, then there's a tense emotion arising in that moment. So just make a list of the emotions that I felt. You can make a list of the emotions that you feel. And notice that when the emotion arises in that moment that it's starting to come, that there is some quiet, automatic trying to do something with it, strategizing about it. Oh God, here comes fear again. What am I going to do? What did I do last time that made it go away? How do I get through this? And just seeing that you can't do anything with it and experiencing what it's like to just be with that emotion. So making a list of the emotions you feel on a regular basis and noticing how when they arise, you can remember the last time it arose and it might come up again with this stage to be transcended. Notice in that moment when it rises that you want to try to do something with it. Remembering that you can't. And that you don't need to. That your very presence as awareness is going to change the emotion itself just by who you are, just by being who you are. This is what we do in our meditation practice and our contemplation practice in lesson 2. But here we're doing it in a very direct way. So by realizing I can't do anything with an emotion, I won't need to. Simply by seeing that I can't do anything with any emotion, the emotion can begin to move. So that's it for today. And again, don't work hard with this. There's no need to work hard with this. Just a pen and paper and a cup of tea, or making a list of all the emotions you feel, the negative emotions you feel. It could be that you feel them every day, some ones, sometimes just once a week, sometimes every now and again when you see a certain person or do a certain thing. And just admitting to yourself that you cannot do anything with them. And seeing what happens in the next time it arises, that you remember there's nothing I can do with this emotion because I'm not a person, and nothing I need to do with this emotion. All my attempts to do something were imagined. All my strategies are imagined. So again, this book is very, very direct, but it is, of course, then very, very quick to be free. We're not really suffering from the emotion anyway. We're only suffering from our thoughts about the emotion. And there's only two. We've looked at them two today in this stage. The idea that I can allow an emotion, I can choose to feel it, or I can choose to push it away. Neither have ever been true for who you are. So, best advice is just to do the homework later. Go and have some fun now if you can. Do something. Don't make hard work of this class. Just maybe listen to it once again or twice during the week. Have a go at the homework. But know that the seeing has already happened here today. The seeing has happened today here. That I cannot do anything with emotions. Thank you so much. Namaste.